All right, Bobcat, so in this video, we're going to go over digestion and absorption of fats. So the first thing that I want to point out, so the mouth, the stomach, and the pancreas, all of these secrete something which is known as lipase. So lipase is something that's going to cleave these triglycerides into, first off, the glycerol backbone as well as the free fatty acids. So then within the gallbladder, this is where we store bile. So bile is released into the duodenum, and this is so we get the bile salts within the duodenum, and this is what's going to help to emulsify fats. Okay, so now let's say you have you have a big meal, fatty meal, and I'm just going to draw one single droplet here. So you have one lipid globule, and it travels down this way all the way down. So we're secreting these bile salts, and then let's say it's breaking down here, it's getting into its smaller parts. So that's what we're going to show over here. So I have one large, so this is a lipid globule. And then once we add our bile salts, so once we add these bile salts, we then get the formation of these smaller lipid droplets. So I'm going to so these bile salts, they break it apart, and then we now have I'm going to put this in blue, we have our lipid droplets. So our lipid droplets. So this was due to I'm going to put this over here, due to the bile salts. Okay, so now that we have these small lipid droplets, we need to get the contents that are inside of these droplets out. So we have to get them out in order to get it into the enterocyte, or this intestinal cell, because we're trying to absorb the triglycerides and the cholesterol in order for it to get processed. And so this is where the lipase comes into play. So remember once again here that lipase was secreted here by the pancreas. So it gets released here into the pancreas, or into the duodenum from the pancreas. And then we get the formation. So let me draw this here. So this is what would represent our free fatty acids, as well as the free fatty acids and the glycerol. So this is this is the formation of what's known as so I'm going to put this in blue. This is the formation of our micelles. And this is due to, we have lipase, and then we get the formation. So these micelles are composed of free fatty acids. It's composed of the glycerol backbone of the triglyceride, and then it's also composed of these cholesterol molecules. So all of this due to the action of lipase, and then you also have the bile salts that are surrounding them. Okay, so then from there it can now easily diffuse here into this enterocyte. So we have diffusion, which is occurring, so diffusion. And then from there we have to package this. So all of these components, so they get repackaged. And this process occurs within the enterocyte, first off within the smoothie, and then also within the Golgi. So from there, exocytosis occurs, and they get packaged into what's known as the chylomicrons. So they get packaged into the chylomicrons, and then from there they have to travel through what's known as the lacteals. Because the lacteals, this is what's going to lead to the lymphatic system. So that's what I have shown here. So this is the duodenum of the small intestine, and then once again these here are the individual enterocytes. So now we have, and this is what's representing the lacteals. So you have the lacteals, and then this is the villi of the small intestine. Okay, so for the lacteals, we have these chylomicrons. So chylomicrons. They're traveling. I'm going to put this in the other box, actually. So the lacteals. This is where the chylomicrons travel. And then from the lacteals, we then get into the thoracic duct. So remember, we're traveling through the lymphatic system. So then the thoracic duct, this is what's going to lead to the subclavian vein, because we have to get it to the venous system. So we're getting it to the venous, and then from there, it'll then travel and get to the adipose sites, so adipose tissue. So this will lead to the adipose tissue, where we are dumping off these triglycerides stored in that chylomicron. So the chylomicron remnant, this is what's going to travel to the liver. And then within the liver, this is where we can further process and then process these triglycerides. Okay, so that's going to do it for this lecture.